Hey guys, welcome to Choppa History today. It's just me today. DP's busy at the moment. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today we're going to have guest Joe Marshall from Joe Marshall Customs. But I wanted to comment to a couple people: Craig Ferry, Jeremy, Michael Vall, Bruno, Gary, Nancy Weems, Dennis, Bruno, Greg Snyder, ice in Western Pennsylvania. I guess we're getting it later today into tomorrow. It's supposed to be a wintry mix here. So snow and rain. Let's see, raining in New Smyrna. But it's probably warm. It's pretty cold here. But it is December. So let's get to this. Oh, one thing I want to mention, if you guys are interested looking for our hats or shirts, we now sell them through Competition Distributing. I will put in the comments the link to buy them. Actually, I'll do it right now. So if anybody last minute, I believe today's your last day. So it just went in the comments. Today's your last day if you want to buy a shirt or a hat. We are selling them exclusively through Competition Distributing. And also, if any of you guys have old bikes and looking for parts or whatever, scope out the rest of their website. They got a ton of stuff on there. Great people, as you guys already know, because we're big fans of competition. Okay, let's bring on Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Jody.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on. It's really an honor to be part of the show.
Oh, thank you.
Very
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, it started out, about 18 years ago. So it's just a simple, small shop, but it's no signage, word of mouth, reference only. I do about 2 custom builds a year, sometimes 3, fully ground up. And that's been the pace for the last 5 or 6 years here. And so typically what I do is they're on commission or spec, either or.
Yeah.
I kind of prefer spec,
Well, it's kind of a catch-22 because if it's commission, you're getting paid for it. But if it's spec, you can do what you want.
Exactly. So I wish, you hit it right on the head. It's a fine line. So, on a commission, even if you know them well, or, it's one of those things where they want, and rightfully so, they want to tailor it to their needs and their preference. And then on the design aspect, you kind of want to do your thing. So
True.
you orchestrate the two. I'm in Northern Virginia. And like I said, we're a fully licensed business, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about my past. I wanted to take things simple. So when I started doing it absolutely full-time here, we did a direction change, brought a house that was as is. My youngest son called it the Goosebumps house. Oh man, there's a whole story, but we don't have time for that. But I will just tell you. So, we've moved and lived and had so many different homes. Well, we walk up to this one, the realtor sees it, and you can't even see the front of the house, Jody, from the street. It looks terrible. One tree looked like a splinter. And he walked up, we went in, and he said, "Dad, you have a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "This is not the one." But I saw something different, so that's how we started here. Then we built the shop, and all that jazz. And so just been kind of cruising along, but I offer fabrication, mostly focus on the complete builds, from frames, springers, handlebars, pipes, controls, you name it, even wheel lacing and stuff like that. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of the shop. And, I just chose to do it rather than have a brick and mortar and a full staff. Just go simple, back to my roots.
Yeah.
Just do one at a time. That's very custom, one-off,
So what was your job, so to speak, before you started doing motorcycles?
Oh man. So I joined the Army when I was 18. You know, like anyone else, you know, I worked just odd jobs and entry-level jobs before I joined the Army. When I joined the Army, I was a helicopter mechanic for 9 years. And so I was in all the big divisions. I spent some time in SOCOM as well. And then I was a warrant officer. So I became like a manager of all of the back shops, you know, with the engine, drivetrain, hydraulics, electric, avionics.
So you got some good past with, you know, metal and mechanics and all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of that when I was young and I was enlisted, I had metallurgical classes, non-destructive inspection classes. I had a lot of, you know, from all the way down to getting a technical classes on inside micrometers, outside micrometers, depth gauges, metallurgy, you know, non-mag particle, mag particle, you know, dye penetrant, X-ray, all that stuff, and then hands-on and building rotor heads, drivetrains, transmissions, you know, doing in-flight track and balance. So I had a lot of those things. And then later, they call it like I was a Mustang because I was enlisted, I was a warrant officer, then I was commissioned. So I went to school at night. I've got 4 kids, and they're all older now. Youngest is in college, his 3rd year, and we're like, keep on going. You know, we love you, but soon you got to move out. And so then I moved to the front. They call it moving from the back to the front. I rode in those. I was in Chinook helicopters primarily, like the big, everybody calls them the big bus with 2 palm trees sticking out of them.
Yeah.
So I moved from the back to the front, and I became a pilot. Then I became a maintenance test pilot and an instructor pilot. And I commanded the Army's maintenance test pilot course for every airframe that they have, and also took charge of the instructor pilot course. So I got a lot of those systems classes and those the parts, the metallurgy, the structural analysis and all of that, and got it to in-flight, you know, performance functioning, and got to see how all the mixed metals and systems and subsystems work. And ever since I was a young kid, I rebuilt my first car. Was a 76 Cutlass S, motor, transmission, you name it, heater core, brake rotors, brake lines, the whole deal by myself when I was 16 with no manual, and drove it from Indiana to Michigan. So it's kind of in my family and in my blood, and that's the Army helped fortify that, I think. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And then after that, I worked in business development for a large Fortune 500 company. And, you know, because I have some other education as well. And one day I couldn't get out of my car. I said, this isn't me. You know, who's this guy in the suit? I'm making a lot of money, but this isn't me. So kind of was a family intervention. And we all sat down, and I built bikes, you know, moonlighting, right? Like I built a bike. Some dude chases me down with cash, like at a bar or in a parking lot or at work. I'm like, what's going on? And it just went like that. So it started very small, and I'm very humbled that things are where they are. But I guess in my mindset is I never forget, you know, the average person who wants a really cool bike and the freedom that it gives them. So that's kind of the deal.
It kind of goes hand in hand. Well, thank you for serving our country. And I like that you kept it small. I would imagine you can probably go bigger. You could probably build more bikes, but I always feel like, and this is my dad's kind of philosophy too, is it takes away like the integrity, and then it takes away the uniqueness of it, and then it becomes where it's not your touch anymore. You know, it's other people's touch. That's, you know, whether the customer is looking for that or not, but it's almost like the bigger you get, the less involved you are in the actual product. So I like that you keep it small, because that's how we are. We could probably be a lot bigger and have a lot more employees and, you know, do more business, but there's a fine line where when's it enough, so to speak.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, like some of the people who know me in the past, and I don't want to get into this too much, but I have a master's degree in business from a very well-known school.
Good
Uh,
for you. Boy,
and
you really are a master of all trades.
I don't know about that, so I'm self-taught in a lot of stuff, but like we talked about, self-taught machinist, welder, the whole deal. But I do have I can't say that, the Army didn't cultivate that, plus my family, heck, when I was 14, I was swinging a pickaxe, breaking beads on semi truck trailer, rims, cleaning fifth wheels. So it's a blue collar family, and I've worked for everything I've ever had. And something you said really struck a chord. I could do this a different way, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I really feel like what you said and what you said about DP, like that's me. I still count my bench stock. I still do all my own orders. All the frames and springers that I have built to date have all been manually machined, hand carved, and cut in the shop by myself. I don't have any workers. I don't have any help. I mean,
Yeah.
even I just recently, I think I have a Shopify hangover, to be honest with you. I was up late setting up the store link and everything to sell some shirts. And even down to putting each shirt in the bag, I try to still write a handwritten note or something on there because, like you said, I think there's something that transfers. When you
I agree.
whether you're painting, whether you're fabricating, no matter what you do, if you put your hand on it, it transfers. And if you have the right intentions,
Yeah.
you can touch people in different ways, whether it's a paintbrush, a paint gun, welder, whatever it is, so that's kind of the philosophy here. And some of the people that I know from different walks say, "What are you doing?" And I say, since I retired and I left that other job, my blood pressure is 40 points lower. I've never been happier, and I've never reconnected with who I am stronger. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know about you, but we're not millionaires, so I can't speak so much on money. But you don't need to be rich to be happy. And I feel like, I would rather have a job that I get by with, like we do okay. Everybody struggles here and there, but I love going to work. I love what we do. And that to me is priceless because you could be making all the money in the world and be miserable. Like that, I just don't, I wouldn't want to do that. Or you make all the money in the world and you devote all your time to that job that you hate, and then you don't have anything else. So to me, this, you kind of, it's one way or the other. And I would rather love what I do and get by. I mean, yeah, I'd love to fly first class every time, but I don't mind sitting in coach, whatever. So you sacrifice one for the other, and it seems like you're kind of in the same boat where, you know, you make money, you get by, you do it, and you love what you do. So that's priceless.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I think in that aspect, we're of the same mind, honestly. Uh, I don't chase money. At one point in my life, I thought money was really important. I think we all go through that, right?
Yeah, when you're young.
Yeah, right. I had the huge house. I had all the cars. I had the fun cars. I had the bikes and this and that. And I carried myself a little different. And I don't really think I'd like that guy today as much. That's just like, being self-reflective and being honest. I think, like you said, when you're young, we've all been there. And for me, it's not about money. Like we're humble people. My grandmother, she looked like Rhea Perlman. She's actually, I have a bike in the museum that's named Ethel. That was her name. She was probably the greatest female influence in my life. She was 4'8", and Rhea Perlman from Cheers. She looked just like her, but she thought she was 10 feet tall. And she'd go into a room and she had a presence, and she was 10 feet tall to everyone. And I always will love her and think about her. And anyways, I won't go too much further down that road.
Which one is Ethel? Do I have a picture of it? Is it?
Not in there. She's the Murano Pearl white one with the red flames in the museum in Sturgis.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I don't think I have a picture of that one. I
Okay,
don't think
yeah,
I.
she
So she's in the Sturgis Hall of Fame Museum.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. That's cool. So we have my race bike is in there too.
I saw it.
So we'll give the museum a plug here. So if anybody wants to see one of Joe's bikes, go check out the museum when they're in Sturgis.
Yeah, they're amazing. It's been there for 2 years, and I still get goosebumps. I mean, there's so many people. I just can't believe I have a bike in there, to be honest. So every time I walk up, I'm like, man, did they know it was me? Such a great history. I could spend hours in there. But
Yeah, it's
she
cool.
said something. The reason I brought her up was she said something that you touched on, and it's a philosophy I have. Is we were talking one day, and she didn't put a huge premium on money and stuff too, but she said to me one day, she said, Joe, I want to tell you something. I said, what's that? And she said, always be a blue jean and flannel shirt kind of guy. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, don't have I guess I can say this on the podcast. She said, no offense to me, she said, don't have a stick so far up your ass that you don't know you can't turn around. And I said, okay, because she was blunt. She was from that era,
Yeah.
She grew up in the Great Depression, and she never held back. And I said, okay. And she said, you know what I mean. You'll figure it out. Just be down to earth. No one likes someone who's uptight and you can't relate to. And so that always stuck with me, like I think that's kind of what drives me in all things really is competing with yourself, not so much others.
Yeah.
But just be real and just be someone that other people can have a down to earth discussion with.
So on your bikes, what is I know you make your own frames, you make your own front ends, pods. Do you make tanks and fenders at all, or do you take blanks and then modify them?
I take blanks and modify them, and
Yep.
a lot of times with the tanks, I'll take aftermarket tanks and shells, and I love to split fat bobs and kind of shape them and cut them around the heads or Frisco and give them a floating look, stuff like that. I'll take original Harley tanks and Frisco them, to stay true, because that's kind of the things I really look at a lot. I have one of the Sosa Metals power hammers here and all that, and I can bang them out and shape them. But a lot of times, it's just I like the shape that I can take from something else, and I also like a big part of me is I'm kind of surprised this is going to come out, but this is one of the most driving factors I think for me is all this stuff originally was set up by soldiers who went to combat and came back, and they were trying to connect. I've been there. I spent 15 months in Iraq. I spent about 5 months in Afghanistan, and I've had other deployments in between that. But when I came back, especially from the last one, there was a series of 3 deployments back to back to back. One of the things that drives me the very most, and why I like to use those shells and kind of put them, it's like the old ways. It's the ways they did it. And I feel such a strong, compelling drive to not let those guys down, to keep that alive. And I feel that, when I'm out here and the music's cranking, and I feel like those are my brothers. That's a brotherhood that I don't want to let them down, and everyone else. So that's kind of what I do with the tanks and why.
Yeah, it's cool that you make a lot of your own stuff, and like it shows how much time you put into something when you said you only make like 2 bikes a year. And that's not because you have another job or you have something else. It's probably legit because you only have so much time in a day that it takes you that long to do that. Whereas, there's so many bike builders out there that are just cake decorators, because fortunately, the drag catalog, what is it, this thick, with you can buy everything and bolt it together and paint it and call it a custom bike. So, and not to take anything away from that, because if that's what your business is, fine. But it gives so much more credit to people like you that build their own stuff, that actually make something yourself. And whether it's a one-off or something that you'll produce a couple of them, or it's something you use on all your bikes, that's cool to do that, because there's not many out there that still do that.
Thank you, thank you. I even have made all my own fixtures and stuff. Like it's crazy. I made a fixture for my springers out of T6 aluminum, and it had 3 manual. All my machines are manual. I do have a DRO on my, my J-Step Bridgeport, but I was so excited. I think I got tennis elbow, but I was like, this is awesome, and I think like the people I was telling, they're like, that's really great. I'm like,
Yeah, like they don't get it.
super cool, and I think the biggest thing for me is, I build every single one like it's going to be me or one of my kids or my family on it, and so I don't cut any corners. And there's, when you're making everything from scratch, there is a little bit of that pressure of, hey, keep in mind this might be someone's mother, father, daughter, son, whatever. You got to take it serious. And so I really do. And every time one of them comes together, I'm still like a kid at Christmas, ready to pull that frame out of the jig. I just get, it's in my heart. I love it. What can I say?
Yeah, yeah, I get it. And you put so much time into it that when it's finally complete, it's like, this is it. I'm sure, I mean, I know this isn't a motorcycle show, but I'm sure it's kind of the same like with your house. And I kind of was in a similar situation with my house. It was a foreclosure. It had been abandoned for 3 or 4 years. Like, it was rough. And now, even at 15 years later, I still like, there's still projects that I want to do, but I look at it and I'm like, I love this house. Like, I love my house because I was able to make it mine. I'm not buying a finished product. I could see the diamond in the rough. And like, my walls, I know this is going to be hard to believe, but every single room in my house is a different color. Like, I have so many colors in my house and I love it. And so to buy a house that's white is like, no thanks. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like with a motorcycle, when we're going back to the spec and the commission, it's you put so much time into it and you see it as it's progressing, that when it's finally done, it's so gratifying.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate, full spectrum. I'm really loving this conversation because when we bought our house, I'll keep this fast so it's motorcycle related, right? But we gutted it from every single room to wall. I cut every single piece of wood trim. I did from entryways, everything. And it may not be perfect, but it's ours and it's unique,
Yeah.
And then, it's funny because the one thing I caution people is when we get started on a build or whatever, I tell them up front, and I don't pull any punches with this. I can work with about anyone, but I tell them, hey, when we get started, it's 50% non-refundable deposit, because as soon as you commit, I go to work. I order steel. I get everything I need to get, and I don't mess around. Now, you might be in the queue where you're in the latter part of the year or whatever, but I'm going to have all of your things logistically sitting in the shop ready to roll. And the other thing that's tricky about the commissions is, and I tell everyone this, I say, hey, you contacted me for my style, so I will build you your vision and my style, communicate that, of course, right? Positive communication and all that. And then I say, there's going to be a point where I kind of drop off the face of the earth. And so you're not going to get like, a progress report 3 times a week, or maybe even once every 2 weeks. Like, there's going to be some time where I go dark and you're going to go, man, what's going on? Then I'm going to show you, hey, because there's, how it is. There's that part where you get in like the flow, and I can't hear anything from anyone. Like, even if you tried to tell me, I'm in it. I have to do what I do, and hopefully you'll like it. and usually it works out pretty good. So that is the challenge of it. But I wouldn't have it any other way. If there's no struggle, I mean, if you need
Right.
a challenge, why do it?
But you figure people are coming to you because they like your style. So it's almost like they're trusting in you. And my dad will tell people, point me in a direction and then I'll take it from there. And
Perfect.
I'm gonna say 98% of the time it's good, great, wonderful. I didn't imagine it would be this good, and there's always a few sticklers, but that's the point of them coming to you, and it's good that you can have that creativeness from customers that they're like, this guy built some cool stuff, so I can't imagine I'm not going to get anything cool. And it's cool that they can trust in you to do that.
That's kind of the way. That's kind of how it goes. It's like, hey, give me some general parameters, and I'll take it from there. And I tell people, I say, hey, it's like that Japanese proverb. You might show up with a stack of wood and tell me that you need to build me a table. Well, when you come back, it might be a chair. Because that's what the wood says it was supposed to be. And I tell them, hey, look, I follow this and I can be as meticulous in design and engineer as possible, but there's also a creative artist, and there's something where if you connect with the project, it's going to tell you what it needs to be. I mean, you obviously, if they come to you for like the the style or the stance and the dimensions of it, you need to stay within that. But you take that trade space and you kind of take it from there, and you see where it takes you. And most of the time, if you have like the freedom to do that, I think they get a much better product.
Yeah, I agree.
A cooler bike. That's it's just you take the handcuffs off, so to speak, or untie my hands, and I can paint you a better picture.
Letting you do what you do good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flea is watching. I don't know if you paint a flea. He's so awesome. But
Yeah.
he said, who does your paint work? He says Tuki. Is that how you
Yeah.
say it?
I have so Tuki has done, like, gosh man, he's such an awesome dude. He's done like
I don't personally know him, but I follow him, and he does some awesome paint work, and he actually saved me big time.
Oh, yeah.
For I don't know if you saw that the Sportster that I did for Harley Davidson. Hold on. I think
Yes.
I think I have a picture of it on here. This one.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so when we were building that, the color, I wanted it to be bright. Like I wanted it to stick out that, in the line of those 6 of us, that if somebody said, I wanted somebody to say, "Oh, that must be Jody Perrot's bike." So
Yeah.
anyway, I picked a teal, and House of Color makes an awesome teal. So it's an old color that my dad had, and he's like, we had like maybe 3/4 of a quart left. And my dad's like, "Oh yeah, we're thinking like this is good. Yeah, we got enough. We're good." So we paint the tank and the front fender. And we kind of we got a blank for the rear fender, and we made it. So I base the tank in the front fender. I start on the graphics, and we finish the rear fender. So now we're under a time crunch for this. So we
Right.
finish the rear fender. We go to paint it, and we don't have enough paint left.
Oh.
So my dad's like, "Well, we'll just order it." House of Color discontinued this paint like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
No one can get it. So we resource it out, and I think actually Flea might have helped us with this to a point. So he says, I think Coast Airbrush now makes the color. So I get a hold of them. I get a quart overnighted. We get it. We spray the rear fender. We hold it up to the tank. Not even close. Like, not like
Yeah.
it looked good in the booth. Like, oh yeah, this is the color. This is good. But side by side, it was like, oh. And
Yeah.
now we're like, I have like a week to get this bike done. And I already did the graphics on the tank and the front fender to repaint them. You know, I would have had to start from scratch. Like, we were like, I literally, so Tukey, so I put a message out there that because it had to be, the thing is, the color was so old, it had to be a painter that's been painting for a long time, and B, somebody that still has it. You know?
Yeah.
And he had a quart of it. So he overnighted me a quart of it and literally saved my paint job. Like, I was already like going in my head, like, okay, I have, 2 days. I can sand all this. We're gonna have to base it again. I gotta wait so long before I can start the graphics. Then you gotta wait for the clear to set. Like, I'm doing all the math the time in my head of getting this done if I had to redo the whole thing. And like I said, he totally saved me.
It's funny you mentioned that because Tukey and he's done like 7 bikes. I've worked with several painters, and Tukey is not that far from me, and we've developed a friendship and a good respect, a very healthy respect for each other. And he's, it's like every year I say, man, I'm not going to have 2 bikes on the stand again right before Sturgis. I'm done with this. Like doing shakedown runs a day prior or the night prior.
Everybody does it.
Like loading up like 2 fresh builds. I got to worry about paint and 3 or 4 bikes with other bike. I'm not doing this this is the last year.
Yeah.
Next year, same thing. Next year, same thing. Well, I told so Tukey, like he jumps through hoops, and he's like, is this one gonna be molded? I'm like, oh, just a little, like, not even a whole lot, like just the welds are so, I TIG weld, so, and he's like,
yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's no big deal, like it, it's like a morning. And he's like, I think his fingerprints are sanded off completely, but I have so much respect, for Tukey because he, but back to like the focus of Teal, because he calls me one day, and this was for the long bike. The long bike, I know you're not supposed to name bikes, but I do it,
Is that one? Are you talking about this one?
Yeah. So
Okay.
That bike is named Eddie because I was building that bike when Eddie Van Halen passed. And when I was a young kid, we wore Van tennis shoes, Ocean Pacific t-shirt, Levi jeans, and we listened to Van Halen. We watched MTV come to a channel from Snow. So like they were everything, and
yeah.
So I'm telling Tukey, and Tukey's like, how's the long bike going? I'm like, it's going, it's going. Like you're in the creative process. It's like,
yeah.
You take it outside and go, no. But your painter's like, I need it. And you're like, that fender's not going to work. That sissy bar's not going to work. It's horrible. I hope my neighbors didn't see that. This is terrible. Like I don't even let my family come over and look at this. No. So I finally get it together. And I show him a picture, and he's like, man, that's insane. I'm like, thanks. When can I have it? I said, I'll tear it down. I'll get it to you like the next day, Okay, cool. So I take it up there. We have our talk, and he says, what are you thinking for color? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't really know, because this one, it's, it's kind of wild. And usually I get hit by a vision for the paint right away. But I don't know this one. He goes, how do you feel about teal? And I said, I don't know how I feel about teal. I got to Google that.
He's like, good thing, because I just sold my last quart to Jody Barrowman.
Right. No, so he sent me pictures, and this is a full circle here, because he sent me pictures, and I said, I could probably be cool with that. And he goes, man, what do you think about like just letting me run loose with this bike and the paint? And I said, like we had just done a couple bikes, and they had to be a little tighter on the layout and stuff. And I said, absolutely, man. What do you have in mind? He's like, I don't know. I got some stuff in mind. And he brought your dad to mind, DP, and he said, well, he did some really cool scroll work, and I want to do like a fingerprint teal panel with some 2-tone leaf scroll. And I was like, All right, man. I'm gonna let you do what you do because you see colors different than I do,
Yeah.
and so we always joke about that, Jody. Now I always say like, see, I told you that teal was a great color.
Yeah, see, it is. And like so my kind of point of the sports stuff was I wanted it to have like a 90s sort of feel because that's what I think of as a Sportster is like that era of them,
Yeah,
because they didn't really change. It's only, what in the last year that they legit look totally different.
right.
And I like that old look better than the newer styles, but I like old stuff way better anyways. So I'm kind of a little biased to the old stuff, but I think teal is such a hot color right now that it would definitely catch your eye.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, at least like I'm looking at like your bikes and stuff that you like Tuki's gotta be like thinking like, wow, at least it's a tank fenders and a frame, not like what Flea's doing is 18 pieces. And
Yeah,
I'm like, and he
yeah.
busts those paint jobs out. Me and my dad both are like, holy cow, did you see Flea got another paint job done? I
It's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, he's like a machine, and to do that many pieces is a lot. So
Yeah.
yours, almost feel like the creativity can be awesome because you can only, it's only say 3 canvases.
So, I think one of the things that I focus on is when you build a bike and it comes together, and then it never finishes the way it starts. Never finishes the way it starts.
Oh, I think we're losing you.
Like sometimes the paint job right away, and other times you're like, have to defer to the painter because, you know, see color. Seeing the lines and bringing out what's there. And he
Yeah.
tries to always do something original, but he like when I did Cash the 65, the Black Cherry bike for Lichter's exhibit, I was very open for the colors, but I
Yeah.
was very specific on the flame style. And I said, man, what do you think? So we started talking. And because, Ethel is an original Murano Pearl, like archived,
I think
thing.
I think I have a picture of that. Is that hold on. I saw it in
Awesome.
here. This one. Is it this one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's me and my dad in the Sturgis Museum.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's actually a real Murano Pearl. And Tukey said, we were talking about it, and Tukey said, and he had an idea. He said, what if we did a real Murano? And I love real Murano. And I said, yeah, but if I do it, I want it to be real. And he said, lucky for you, I have some stash. So I was really humbled that he had that. And then he striped the flames. We did a heavy flake flame on that and like a candy apple. And then he striped it in variegated gold leaf. So it brought it all together. But that Murano, especially under the warm lights, there's just nothing like that flop. And he has that knowledge. So even when we talked about Cash that 65, I was like, I want the flames to be long licks and thin. And he was like, well, I don't want to do a modern type look on the paint. I want it to have an enamel type look. So we did cobweb in the flames. He did mini flake, and he the way he did it, it looks like enamel.
Is it this one?
No,
I don't know if I have a picture.
it's like the Black Cherry one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, that one. So he was like, man, it just turned out great. Because the way that tank shape was, I told him the flames have to be a little bit asymmetrically symmetric, I guess is how you would say it, but
Yeah.
a little wild, you know what I mean? It's got to have a little pizzazz to it, a little pop to keep that, just to bring it together because I wanted that one to have. My goal for that was I built that bike. Believe it or not, Jody, I built that bike in 4 weeks.
Don't tell people that because then they'll say, "Oh,
No.
why did it take you 6 months to build mine?"
I was subhuman, you know what I mean? Like, because we were in Tennessee for the TNMR, and Michael extended the invitation to go. That motor was in a Stanley rollaway crate heading to Long Beach as we were talking. I thought the 48, the green bike, Lucky, was going to go, but my customer, he'd been waiting for it for quite some time, and so I'd already committed and given my word, so it was an exception, and it was all hands on deck. I mean, Tukey closed his books. Gus, who does the chroming, he closed his books. Like, people really rallied, and I, you know, it all came together. But you know how it goes. Like, sometimes it's like, you know, full on crunch mode. So
yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't.
Well, what was crazy was that motor was in Long Beach with Eric Bennett, and he was working. And he closed his books to do it.
Do you use the Bennetts?
Yeah.
So we land speed raced with them.
Wow.
Good people.
You know, they are. Eric has moved, and from Long Beach, so he's relocating, and he's kind of he's in that process now.
Where is he moving to?
He's moving to Alabama.
Oh, wow, that's a drastic change from Long Beach to Alabama.
Yeah, I won't get into too much of the details. You know, we stay in touch. I met Eric in Tennessee the first time I went a few years ago now, and he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
He came through in spades, you know, and so I used Eric and I used Departure also. They built a lot of motors for me too.
Yeah, so Lee, Lee and my dad are buddies.
Yeah, Lee and I are very good friends. We probably talk once or twice a week.
He's a great guy.
That's where that motor and Eddie, that was Lee's personal motor.
Oh no, in the long one.
Yeah, the long bike. That was Lee's personal motor.
Oh, and, no way.
It was the only motor he held on to. He had that motor a year after he got married, and he called me one day and said, "I think I'd like for you to have this motor." And so I ended up getting the motor, and that's what's, you know, that's what made me really scratch my head and say, okay, if I build a bike around this motor, I have to touch every piece. It's got to be something that's out of the ordinary, and it's got to be something that makes him glad he sent that to me. And I unveiled that bike publicly, really, at the first Departure show they had. And of course, Lee and I talked, and Lee and Brenda pulled up, and he saw the bike. And I have a picture of them. You know, it's like you, I'm sure. I have a lot of pictures, but I don't post them, and I keep personal stuff personal. But I will always treasure that picture. And even now, you know, I tell him, I just talked to him yesterday, and I said, you know, I'm still very honored to have that. And it's just a big deal when someone does something like that, you know what I mean, and hands it down. But amazing, man.
What year is this Panhead?
56.
56.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a 56. It's got a late model 73 shovel head pump on it with 63 original outside Oiler heads, and I just replaced the pump body. The plug on the inside of the pump body was needed a little bit of love because it's been in service so long. So got that up and running. It's dry as a bone, and you know, it's ready to rock and roll.
That's cool. So you built the front end on this as well, correct?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome to build literally all this stuff. You had sent me a bunch of pictures, like, so the grips, I believe these lights. Sorry, that's like a choke. Is that like a choke knob?
Shift knob.
Oh, is it a shift knob? I can't tell the size of it. Are these lights, tail lights?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So how can people buy this stuff, or? Yeah,
so what I do, right, is up till now, like I make like a velocity stack tail light and shift knobs. I make choke knobs. I make idle screws. I make foot pegs, toe pegs, all that jazz. And what I do up till now, right, is, and I get requests all the time. I know people are getting frustrated. I probably field 3 to 4 calls a week for a frame, but I don't just do individual frames. You have to buy an entire bike. Um, it's
That's
just
pretty
the way,
good.
it's just the way I choose to go about it. I will say this: I set up a Shopify last night. A little. I guess I think I still have had like. That's why I keep drinking coffee, because I won't tell you how late I was up. And I said, man, between Jody and DP, I better have my game on. I got to drink some coffee, give me a Motrin. But I set up a store so they can go there. I've got shirts and hooded sweatshirts, jacket zip up.
Can I find it? Is it up already?
It's on in the link in my bio. Yeah, on Instagram.
All right, so hold on. I'm gonna see if I go to Shopify, Joe Marshall Customs. Is that how it'll how I can pull it up? Because I'll
I'm
put
not
a link.
100. I'm not 100% if it will or not. I know that if you go to my Instagram page, it has the link pop that pulls the store up through Shopify. Um, you may be able to see it that way, but if not,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna copy and paste it right now into the comments so that if anybody wants to support you, which I'm seeing the comments right now, and somebody just commented "hot girls for you." It's nice when we get spam in these comments, but yeah. So I see you got some shirts. So you're gonna have products on here as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like one of the things you pointed out, the long bike, I'd be remiss not to mention this, but I have to give Mondo a shout out because, I called Mondo, and I've had a ton of springers, and actually on that Black Cherry bike, I know you guys know Donnie Smith. He was so cool, man. I called him, and this was originally one of his CCI girders. And so I remember those from back in the day. And of course, I machined and did a lot of stuff to it, and we had a very cool conversation. He says, "What do you plan on doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going to get rid of the handlebar adapter and do some other things." He's like, "Thank God." He goes, "You need a shock." And I said, "Actually, I do need a shock." And I was so happy because there's like all these OGs, I mean, your dad and Donnie. I'm like, I don't want to tell this guy that I don't like the shock on this girder. This is a very touchy subject. And he brought it up, and I just was like, yes. So he sent me a shock, and, he's like, send me a check. And I was like, okay. I sent him a check, and he sent me a shock, and he checked it out at the show. And man, it was really cool. But also, so I'd had a lot of springers and stuff, and I knew how I wanted to go about it. And I called Mondo and I said, "Hey, can I, not sure if you got time to talk or whatever, but I just want to get some feedback, man." And he helped me so much with different ideas when you get that long. And he said, "Okay, consider this, consider that." So that front end is 40 over, and I won't get into all the dimensions, but I will say, just as a plug out there, if you're planning on building something that long, that's probably as long as you really need to go, and you're going to have to sleeve it. So go into it educated, and do your homework, because it's a long bike, and it tracks and stuff, but it took a lot of time to get there. And I did consult Mondo, and Mondo was very gracious, and so he helped me out. He helped me out when it started to get to that phase. He gave me some insight, and that helped. So it's kind of cool because it's a compilation of a lot of things, from the teal, the scrolls, the Springer, then the motor from Lee, the whole deal is just really, really cool.
Yeah, I like how you said go into it educated, as people should with everything, and that's the thing is a lot of people don't go into it educated. I mean, I know there's a lot of bikes out there that whether they're long, wide, skinny, giant motors, whatever, but they're never ridden. That they whether they legit can't be ridden, or they're too radical to ride, or you can't ride them, or you can't reach the handlebars. We have a bike in the shop now that I won't mention it too much, but me and DP kind of chuckle a little bit at it because you have to have like 7-foot arms to reach because the seat's so far back, and it was a kit bike, but it's probably not going to be ridden,
Well, what's funny is the same deal is I see people at some of these, events, and I'll just keep it positive, and they pull their bikes out and they push them over and put them on the stand. And, like one of the things that I was, that bike originally, the long bike was built to go to SEMA for House of Color. They didn't go. So that bike kind of sat, and, it's a lot of bike. But I rode it, when I took it to Sturgis last year, I rode it from Deadwood out to Full Throttle and rode it around until my condenser totally went out and my coil became intermittent, right? Live and die by the mag. That's how I met Sean. So Sean pulls up and's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I can't get help from anybody else, and I'm going through the wickets of everything. So we met and we talked, and it was just really cool. You know what I mean? So
yeah, Sean's like that.
Yeah, I mean, and so for me, like that's one thing that I really am very serious about. Someone sent me a note and said, "That's a great show bike on that black cherry bike that went to Lictors," and I said,
"Oh, really?"
I said, "All my bikes are riders, and before you go any further, that bike has already been ridden, tuned. The valves have been reset. Because it's got an auto clutch EFM on it, and it's hand shift. So they look at it and they don't see a clutch release rod, and they don't see certain things. And I'm like,
they don't know."
No, and I say that's a rider. That bike has already been pushed and ridden, like all of them. And the blue bike, the dog, that bike has been down gravel roads, dirt roads. That bike has that one right there. It's got about 7,000 miles on it. And, so for me, kind of like you said, it's the whole deal is be real, build real bikes that can be ridden. If it does well on a show, that's great. I'm going to build every single one that hopefully would do well in a show, but that is not my primary, that's not my primary undertaking. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to be cool. I want people to look at it. I always have. It's probably very cliche. I get so much inspiration from just a David Mann poster because that's the era that I just click with, like I feel it, and I see remember my dad and his buddies and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. I won't go down the rabbit hole too much on that. But anyways, and I should have I'm about to release a part, maybe 2, in the year that people will be able to buy. There'll be a pre-sale. It's taken about a year to develop it, so I won't say any more. But if you see a 3D model in SolidWorks that's rotating on my page, there'll be a link to buy it. Let's talk.
Good.
I think it's going to be kind of something that might stick with some people. So we'll see where it goes,
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I mean, I'm sure you'd rather be doing full builds than, making shift knobs making pegs. But the thing is, that's kind of like a bread and butter. So you spend a week making a ton of them, and then while you're working on other products, people are ordering them, and then that's money coming in when money isn't coming in for a big project. So it's good to have those other sources of income as you're working.
That's what it is. It's set up to be passive income, and I know that a lot of people can't afford a complete bike, but I've got a few things like I said, I won't get into it. It's a big part. So I think it'd be something that they can get a pretty substantial part that performs well, functions well, is cool, it's kind of unique to what's out there, and but it's passive income, it's continuous. Same thing with the merchandise and all that, because people have been on me for years of, hey, I used to make bars and different things about, can you have some more parts available or something like, how do I buy it? And I've always been of the mind of, well, the right people will make it here and they'll get the bikes and all that stuff. But like you said, over time, you know, when it comes from a business perspective, it's quite an investment when you have a couple spec bikes, because I also won't build a bike and just send it. Yeah, I got to put some miles on it and make sure it's straight.
Yeah.
You know, I want it to be tuned right. I want to check those push rods. You know, I mean, I want to check everything. And then when it's got a little bit of time on it and I can give someone something that's straight and they're not, you know, frustrated or anything, they can go ride and enjoy it. And then sometimes I got to teach them a little bit about it. You know, I've taught 3 people how to ride foot clutches. We did a foot clutch boot camp and they love it. They're out rolling. So
yeah. So when you know, riding the old bikes, they're all rocker clutches, and you know, some guy saw me on one at a local bike show, and you know, he was like your typical weekend biker. He's probably like some professional, wears a suit, and on the weekends he busts out his Holly jeans and
yeah,
whatever. He saw me and he's like, "How are you braking backwards?" He thought that it was a brake, and that, you know, when you heel,
right, yeah,
you're hitting the brake, and he's like, "Why is it?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I like had to explain it, and he's like, "What?" He had no clue about old bikes, no, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to
right.
know. And I thought it was good. At least he asked, but it was kind of funny to me that he, you know, he's supposedly a biker and he's never even heard of a rocker clutch.
You know what to look out for when those guys are like that. If they try to take pictures on your bike, just check their back pockets so they're not bedazzled with those Affliction jeans and scratch their paint. You know?
Yeah, I definitely, he was like one pair of jeans away from the Affliction jeans.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
Yeah, like I probably had more grease on the bottom of my shoe than he did ever on his whole body.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like, yeah, he was a clean cut guy. But anyway, you know, it's funny how the motorcycle world is just so different in so many senses. Like, you know, your bike's with a jockey shift and a foot clutch. You know, there's a ton of guys that are huge into bobbers, but like you said, they don't know how to ride a foot clutch. You know, they don't.
Yeah,
It's
they all
not
do
even
until
that
they
thing.
don't. You know? Yeah, have you ever ridden a foot clutch? Oh, yeah. And, you know, because like rocker clutch versus throwaway pedal, you know, especially if it's hydraulic, different deal. And it's like, well, just keep in mind, you know, this is a little different animal, whether it's a rocker or it's throwaway. It's coordination. It's different, you know. So you find out where the rubber meets the road really, really fast on that. I mean, and I'm super excited because I'm delving into a little bit of the older stuff. You know, I think it's Flatty in the next.
You kind of cut out. Did you say you're gonna use a flathead? A 45?
Yeah, a big inch, 80 inch.
Okay, like a 60, so a
So
PL or UL?
yeah, it would be a UL or like a ULH or a UH, and then if it may end up being a UL. So
Oh, you're cutting out again.
I've got a. Are we?
Sorry, you were cutting out. So you said you're gonna use a big twin, a flathead. Cutting out again.
Oh, sorry. Well, I said, yeah. So typically, like the last 3 builds have been pans, you know, and but this, I'm really excited about the big inch flat head. You know, it could be, like I said, could be in the UL territory, but I'm hoping we can land an 80 inch.
Yeah,
you
so
know,
the 80 inch is the way to go.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, and it's so stay tuned for that. This next spec build is going to be something that I bring back some stuff from my archives a little. It's going to be a little different. I think it'll be cool. I'm super stoked about it.
Good. What do you have, like a goal to have it done?
Yeah. So, you know, what I'm trying to do is have it done by mid-summer, because I want to ride it from the East Coast to the West Coast, pay homage to a few people and tribute, visit, and support them. and then ride it back. And I'm going to
That's
try
cool.
to document along the way, so I hope it doesn't turn into like Blair Witch Project, to be honest, but, I'm sure I'll figure it out as we go. But that's one of the reasons and why I want to kind of go the Flathead route. I've heard so many good things about it, and it's just, I guess, as time goes by, maybe I'll just keep getting into the older and older and older stuff. It just keeps talking to me. I love it. So, plus I want to do something that's like, I'm always trying to do something different. Dimensions, drivetrain packages, paint, aesthetics, stance, all that. I just, keep it interesting.
When I get on my newer bikes, like my Indian, I love that bike. I love my Challenger. It's the smoothest ride. It's comfortable. It's got horsepower, everything, but it's so boring. Like, it's so boring because I'm so used to, a tank shift, a foot clutch. I'm used to barely any brakes. The handling, there's not much power. That there's so many things you have to juggle that it makes it fun. That Sean and I just rode on the Chase. Both of us were on 36 VLHs on the 80-inch flatheads. Sean went the whole way without skipping a beat. I skipped a beat every 50 miles or so. But those bikes are definitely, like, those motors are strong motors, because like all the problems that I had was a lot of luck. I just had bad luck. And then stuff that I wouldn't have known, like my coil. I went through 2 coils.
Right. Yeah. They can be bad out of the box.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't predict that. So, but otherwise, they're such good motors. The bike that I rode on the previous Chase as well. In 2019, we went from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to Key West. I did not skip a beat. I went flawlessly the whole way. So I know they can do it. I just went from one extreme to the other. But they're so much fun to ride. Like, I don't want to ride a traditional bike anymore. They're just,
I'm a total chopper guy. I always have been. I've had stock bikes and stuff, and I've done a bunch of Softail stuff, especially back in the early 2000s, all that. I was putting fenders and swing arms and stuff and all that jazz. But man, I can't help it. I'm a rigid, minimal chopper guy. Like, that's when I get on them, I just feel it, I love it. I makes you feel alive, right? Like,
and you're riding something, I feel like, that everybody else isn't riding. You can get on a road glide and you go and park in a motorcycle event and you have to question which one's yours, because there's 30 of them. There's 30 black road glides. Like, to me, there's nothing special about it. So I would rather ride something either custom built or something that's wicked old or something you never see, that's got character.
Exactly. I feel like, I guess in my mind, I feel like if you've been given the talent to ride an older motorcycle and customize it and or build it, and you have the ability to show people what through that that machine, what you're made of, that's special. And especially I love the older motorcycles. I don't have when it gets to the really old stuff, I don't have the depth in them like you and Sean and a lot of the community. I love them. I feel like it could really grab a hold of me, because when you get on them, you're part of history and you're part of something special. Like, you just don't get one of those. You know what I mean? Like, there's a process and there's a relationship I guess, like, it comes to you, it finds you, and you have something special. No matter, I guess that's what it is for me. Is I think the whole genre, all of that, I get so passionate about it. Is it's such an addiction. Like, I just love it. I can't control it. But it just speaks to you. It speaks to other people, like in so many volumes, and like the whole compilation of all of it. I just think of it as such a wonderful place and time, right? Like it's
Yeah.
almost like you get on one of those, any flavor, could be from, you know, the early teens on up to, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to make anybody mad. You know, I kind of like stop at shovels, but you know,
It's okay.
you know,
It's your thing.
you know, I mean, I feel like when you get on an older bike, or you get on something that you've put your hands on, and it's something that's different. It's unique. You
Yeah.
can't just get it out of a book. There's something that comes alive in you, and also in the machine, and it's a transfer both ways, and it's a very honest magical.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently bought a flathead, a 34, a VL, and this bike is so cool because it's got such character and it's got a good story. And like I bought it kind of through an estate sale, so I bought it from the original owner's nephew. And like the story with it is so cool, and to think that now I own this 90 plus year old piece of history
Yeah.
is so cool to me, that there's such a story. But a lot of the thing with like old bikes is I ride all mine. I mean, this one I haven't ridden yet because it's still rough. I haven't
Yeah, you
done
gotta
it.
take it out.
I like that these old bikes are ridden, and like that's a little one of the many reasons that I like the Cannonball and the Chase, is because these $100,000 motorcycles are actually ridden. They're
Yeah.
actually on the road running. Like they're not in a museum, you know. And I think that's so important, because just the maintenance of riding these things is huge. Like you can't just go in your garage and get on them and go. Like you can't. There's so much to them, not only when they sit, but also physically riding them. Like I was explaining to somebody about um the VLHs, that they're a total loss oil system, and what that is. And they were like, so you have to change your oil every time you get gas? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, really? That's a pain. And I don't think twice about it. You
Yeah.
know, it is what it is. Like, I like it. It's all part of the whole thing of old bikes. It, you know, makes them fun and
I think
interesting.
I think you're either in a bike or you're on a bike.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just, you know, I consider like the older bikes and the choppers like a helicopter versus a plane. A helicopter, you have to force it to fly. It doesn't want to fly. It wants to fall. But you have to overcome so many things with, you know, the drag with the lift and compensation and all this. Whereas a fixed wing aircraft, it just will glide. But a helicopter is like a 3-year-old kid. It's going to be okay when you're watching it. As soon as you turn your back, it's going to go crazy, spider monkey, do all kinds of weird stuff, you know. But that's the challenge. That's the balance, you know. Like you can, I mean, they're kind of like you said. I would describe it just like you said. It's kind of boring. The stock bikes I ride, like I start thinking about other stuff. When I'm on a chopper, I don't think about anything, you know, besides just riding that chopper and being in the moment. That's
Well, all right, Joe, I don't want to take up too much of your day. I really appreciate you coming on here. If anybody is looking for your stuff, I posted a link in our comments section so they can go and support you, buy your shirts. Is there a cutoff for Christmas?
So the thing, right? Like, I'm going to. Today is the last day. If you order one, if they would ship. But I will tell you, I put out a link and bought a lot more shirts than I expected, and every last one sold. So
Awesome.
I reached out to my shirt, you know, guy, and I have a whole bunch more shirts coming, red, black, and the sweatshirts, and we're doing a rush to get everything here. by next week, but it won't ship, and it will ship before Christmas.
But
Because I didn't anticipate that literally every single last shirt was gone within a day. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe let me call. And so, long story short, Reader's Digest version is if you order a shirt now, they'll ship out before Christmas. They should ship out next week. I'm just waiting to get them here.
Okay.
And they can go to those links. And also, to answer your question earlier, I will put some other parts on the store so that you can buy them directly. I'm going to start doing that because in the past it's been more like you got to get a hold of me if I'm heads down in a build. I always respond and get them to them, but it's a more one-on-one basis, and I know sometimes that doesn't work for people. So I'm going to start doing batch runs of stuff. It's tough because if I do a batch run of taillights, it ties up my lathe and my mill till I get through those production style steps. So, but a lot of people have asked, so I will start to do a little bit more of that and post those. So if you say, hey, I'd like to get a shift knob, all you got to do is go on there and click it. And I know that some people want the thread pitches like 1/2-13 or 3H24, that's a popular one, or 3/8, 16. So I'll make those, and so you can just go in and they'll be able to toggle, and then they don't have to wait for me to get back with them. It's usually only a day or so, but people are busy, and I want to kind of answer the mail on that. So that's where that's heading.
Okay. All right. And now anybody, they can find you on Instagram, Joe Marshall Customs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, cool. So thank you very much, like I said, for coming on our show, and cool builds. We'll definitely look forward to seeing a flathead build.
That'll be awesome. Thank you so much, Jody, and tell DP I said that as well. I'm very honored to be part of the show, and having run across paths with you in the years past, and spending the time today is definitely my pleasure, my honor, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, no problem, Joe. We're glad to have you. All right, have a good Christmas.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, guys, so that was our show today. If any of you guys want to order shirts, here they are. You can go to Competition Distributing's website. They are selling them exclusively over on their website. I believe today is the last day to order them to guarantee before Christmas. So competitiondist.com to order Perowitz shirts and hats. We still have some left over there, so if anybody wants one, go over there and buy one. Also, don't forget to follow us on YouTube. Here it is, the Perowitz YouTube. Kelsey, who has been helping us hugely with social media and videos and such, has been an awesome asset. So if you guys are seeing a ton of stuff being posted on our social media, give Kelsey a shout out. She's doing an awesome job. So go subscribe to our YouTube page. If you guys are watching live on YouTube, also comment, let me know, so that we can kind of see who's watching on YouTube versus Facebook. And we'll be back next week for another show. I don't know who our guest will be yet, so we'll let you know. But hopefully we'll see you next week. And a shout out to Indian Motorcycles and La Tigers for sponsoring Chopper History so that we can keep bringing you these live videos. All right, guys, we'll catch you later.